So, the first thing that we're going to talk about today is to have. To have. That is the meaning of the word we're going to talk about in English. And when we are writing it down in Korean, it's going to be ita. Ita. To have. Ita. Ita. To have. It has two meanings. This Korean word ita and to have is the first meaning that we're going to talk about. Now, one thing that we have to take note that's very important is that this word is an adjective. It is not a verb. It is an adjective. And this will come in very important later onwards. So, firstly, let's look at this. I'm going to write down a sentence and we're going to try forming it into a Korean sentence. So, I have a spaceship. Let's see. First, we want to find out which is the subject. Yes, it is I. So, we first have I as the subject. And now, where's the object? The spaceship, yes. So, we have the spaceship as the object. And now, have. Is that a verb? No. Remember, we said that it's an adjective. And it's very important to be able to differentiate that. But we are going to have to put this into a sentence. So like we did with I like you, we had to change it to I you like to make it into the correct order when forming a Korean sentence. So we have the subject and then the object comes right after it. And lastly, we put the verb or the adjective in the back. So this becomes the correct order of words. I, a spaceship, have. That would be the direct translation. And now let's form it into the actual Korean words. Do you remember what I forms as? If you don't, let's go back to one of our lessons where we did learn about this, where me or I equals da or 저. We'll use da this time, and this is the informal way. But remember, da is like a dog, and a dog needs its tail, which is also called a particle. Do you remember which particle to use? Again, da is the word, and we are looking for the particle that is attached to it, like a dog's tail. Now, this particle can be any of the ones below. Which do you think it is? Subject or object? It is the subject because the da, as we said, is the subject, and it also ends in a vowel, so we're going to use dun as our tail. If the word was bang, then we would use un as the tail. Now, if you're still a little confused, da ends in a vowel, and that is a vowel right there. And bang, that's the word for bread, ends with a consonant, and that is why it is using the right particle. So depending on what the word ends as, that's when we use the certain corresponding particle as the tail. Next, we're gonna use a spaceship, and the words that I'm writing there is 우주선, 우주선, 우주선. A spaceship is, as we said, an object. So, the object, 우주선, is gonna be the dog. And now we have to go looking for its tail, which is the particle. Do you remember what it would be? No. Well, first we have to know that we're using the word to have, which is an adjective. So let's write that in first. 있다. And now let's look for the tail of the spaceship. Looking back to one of our lessons, when we were looking for the tail of an object, which what a spaceship is, we have two options. And when you look at the word spaceship, it is corresponding with an adjective. So can you use those two? Like we did down below in the sentence, I like you. Like, though, is a verb. And what did we establish have is? Have is an adjective. So if like is able to use these two particles, then what does 있다, which is not a verb but an adjective, use? Well, that's a great question because it's gonna be a new particle that we are introducing. And when we look into this, I know it can get a little bit confusing, but I will try my best to help explain it, and I'm sure things will become clear to you by the end of this lesson. So, above we learned the particles for subject and object, but for adjective, there are two different particles. First one on the left is pronounced ka, ka, and this one on the right is pronounced e. Ka is when the word ends in a vowel, and e is when it ends in a consonant. Ka is ka. E is e. Sort of like when you say the word eat. That first part, the e, is how you pronounce that. So, which does spaceship use? Which tail does it use? Let's look up. Does it end in a consonant or vowel? Let me write down the word for you again and look closely what that word ends with. That is a diun. Now, consonant or vowel? Consonant. Yes, so that word ends in a consonant, so we're going to use this tail, which is e, and that's why we'll insert it right now next to the word spaceship. 우주선. Great. Now we have a full sentence translated. I have a spaceship. 나는 우주선이 있다. 나는 우주선이 있다. 다, and then the tail, 우주선, and then the tail, and then 있다, which is the adjective. To further solidify this concept, what if this word was a verb and not an adjective? Would we still use this particle of e? Answers no. Think back to the word spaceship. It is an object, and if we're not using the word e, then we would use these particles for the object if the word next to it was a verb and not an adjective. So would be the particle tail we would use if 있다 was replaced with a verb. But sadly it is an adjective, and that is why we are using these two particles Okay, now let's move on to the second meaning of the word ita. And the second meaning is to be at a location. To be at a location. Ita. Ita. It's the same exact word, but with a different meaning. This is also an adjective, and to explain it, we're going to use this word e. E. And this word denotes a time or a place, and this is another particle, yes. Its translations into English can mean several things, such as at, on, in, into, or do. Now, is a specific particle for this word ita. They're basically linked together. So, if you explain in English terms, to be at a location, when you're talking about it, you use the word at, and that is what this particle sort of represents for this word ita, the at portion, and thus these two words are linked. So let's give some examples of the use of this particle. Now, I went to the hospital at 9 p.m. The words to and at are representing e. The particle e is also the tail, and that's when it would be used. So, let's try out an actual sentence like before and translate it into a Korean sentence. I am at the hospital. I am at the hospital. Do you know what's coming? Yes. Let's identify the subject. And then, what is am at? That is the adjective. Remember, to be at a location, ita, is an adjective. So, we have the hospital left, and this is the place or the location that we are talking about. Let's change this into the correct order, and if you can guess it, that'd be awesome. But we will go over it. Subject first, and then the location or place, and then the adjective coming last. So, I is gonna be like a dog with a tail. The hospital will also have a tail, and am at is just an adjective, so it's not gonna have a tail. And remember, it's not a verb. Let's translate. I is da, and then the tail is dun, da, nun. And what about hospital? Do you remember the word for hospital? prison. 나는 감옥에 있다. It translates to I am at prison. I am at prison. So, how do you differentiate between these two meanings if they have the same exact word? And that's where number 3 of this lesson comes in. Difference between the two. So, how do you find out the difference between the two? Well, I shall give you your answer. It is by context. Yes. So, you have to see how that word is used in a sentence, and that's how you will derive which meaning is being used. I know it can sound a little difficult, but I'll give you some examples to show you that it's actually not that difficult. It can be simple. We just have to be able to see it in the right light. Now, we are going to change one of the particles and then add another similar to sentences, and let's get to explaining this thing. First words are the same and the last words are the same. It's just these words in the middle that are different. First one is 병원, hospital, which we talked about. Do you see anything wrong with this sentence? Is this particle the correct one? Considering the word 병원 versus the word below. Look at what 병원 ends with, and then look at that second word, what it ends with. Do you think the first or second one is correct in its usage with the particle 가? That's right, it is the second one that is correct. That particle next to 병원, hospital, is incorrect. Why? Because 가 is only used when the word before it ends in a vowel. If it ends in a consonant like 병원, it has to use E. Similar to the spaceship we talked about, remember, it ends with a 이은, so that's why we use E. So 나는 병원이 있다. That would be more grammatically correct. Again, it would be 나는 병원이 있다 versus the wrong version that is written out there. 나는 병원가 있다. But this sentence is still not 100% grammatically correct. And why is that? Can you guess? First sentence, 나는 병원에 있다. It means I am at the hospital. Remember, that's the sentence we went over just now. But the second one, 나는 병원이 있다. Do you know what that would mean? Yes, it means I have a hospital. Now, which sentence sounds correct to you? Yes, that first one. You don't have a hospital. You can perhaps own it, and it could make partial sense, but that first sentence is definitely what makes sense to us. What if that second word, 강아지, means puppy? 나는 강아지에 있다. What would that translate into versus 나는 강아지가 있다? Now, 강아지, if that means puppy again, think about which associated with it. To have has ka or e, depending on whether the word ends in a vowel or consonant. And to be at a location has e. So, that is actually the simplest answer to find the difference between the two. Context and the particles. Try both of the sentences. Try translating both of them and see which meaning you are actually going for. Even though you would know the translation of the word ita based on its particle, you still need to find out which sentence is correct and which usage of the word is actually going to be correct. So this is going to be the final product, guys, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. And I just want to say thank you again for 1K subs. I really can't believe it. I'm extremely